It is my pleasure to welcome here Professor William Ortiz, who's going to present the American experience in his own music. Thank you.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Thank you for being here. And thanks, I want to thank Hunter College and the Centro of Puerto Rican Studies, and Dr. Alberto Hernandez and his staff for the invitation. It's great to be back here in New York City. I love it. I have selected a number of works to illustrate the American experience in music. My commitment to social change through music has been long-standing. These works aim to take classical music out of its traditional habitat of social, economic, and educational privilege and actively engage the underprivileged members of our society. In the process, classical music taboos are discarded, perceptions of social legitimacy are reevaluated, and borders are crossed. Street sounds, vocalized and sonic graffiti, Nuyorican poetry, bilingualism, plena, bomba, and salsa are elements to be found in one form or another and discussed in compositions like 124 East 107th Street, Rican, graffiti Nuyorican, street music, bolero and hip-hop in Merrill Avenue, ghetto, and 121st Street street rap. The presentation will conclude with the world premiere of La Décima Musa with text by my daughter, Amaya Ortiz, inspired on the poetry of Sor Juana Inez. I'll come back to that later. It was around 1967 when I read P.D. Thomas's autobiographical Down These Mean Streets. As a recent high school graduate living in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, the book made a strong impression on me. It reflected the social and racial issues most young Puerto Ricans were confronted with at the time. It also exposed the conflict and myth of the American melting pot. About the same time, the so-called Nuyorican poets busted on the scene. Victor Hernandez Cruz with Snaps, Miguel Piñero with Short Eyes, Pedro Pietri's classic Puerto Rican Obituary, Miguel Algarin, Sandra Esteves, Tato Laviera, and others. Their words, spirit, and vitality resonated through me. They were inspirational and created in me a sense of identity and pride to be a New York Puerto Rican. This was my scene. We had a culture. When my family decided to move back to Puerto Rico, having survived the disappointments and tribulations of the Big Apple, I continued my studies at the Puerto Rico Conservatory of Music. It was there that I discovered concert music and contemporary art music, if you like. This awareness was brought about by my first composition teacher, Maestro Hector Campos Parsi, which Max talked about just now. One of the most outstanding and highly regarded composers of contemporary concert music. A whole new musical world opened up to me. The modernist, avant-garde music scene was in full bloom at the time, and I was naturally attracted to it. I was motivated to create, to experiment in this new contemporary art form. I returned to New York City to continue graduate work in composition. It was there that I unconsciously discovered in my music certain rhythmic, melodic, and harmonic inflections pertaining to the sounds and life of the Latin city barrio. I realized that there was a hidden street aesthetic that manifested itself throughout my work. The musical connection to the Nuyorican poets and writers was obvious. El barrio, the city, lo Latino, served as an inspiration for my classical compositions, which embodied this urban cultural heritage. My commitment to social change through music has been long-standing. I approach musical structure as an unpretentious process that can be understood instinctively by listeners with no particular musical training or other educational prerequisites. My music is a personal journey, of course, And as I stated before, I conceive of music as a violent beauty of urban life, as the expression of the cries and shouts of the streets, cries and shouts that reflect the thoughts of those who feel, of those who are oppressed. It is my intent to convert the language of the street into a legitimate instrument. It is in this context that I have selected the following works that I feel are representative of that aesthetic. In doing so, I hope to illustrate through contemporary art, music, the Puerto Rican experience in the continent. Let's see now. Okay, 124 East on 7th Street of 1979, for 6 percussionists, narrator, actor, and electronic tape is a music theater piece in 4 movements, lasting approximately 35 minutes. It received the Felipe Gutierrez Espinosa International Award, and it was chosen for the 1981 International Society of Contemporary Music World Music Days in Brussels. The music depicts the Latino, or more specifically the Puerto Rican urban experience in the United States, the struggle against the agony of the ghetto, and against the imposition of a crushing colonial state of mind. Puerto Rico is a nation isolated and unnaturally divided by a colonialism that threatens its cultural integrity and extinction. Those mostly poor who were forced to immigrate to the United States by the realities of life in a dependent economy are doubly victimized and alienated. The texts written by 2 Neo-Rican poets dramatize this condition. They are Pedro Pietri in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd movements, and Sandra Esteves in the 4th movement. I have edited and rearranged the poetry to make it fit the structure and pacing of the piece, following the migrants' trajectory of migration, settlement, and development. The text can be narrated in English or Spanish. The narrator-actor intones a strong social protest poetry over a densely layered, highly rhythmic mixture of percussion and urban noise on the electronic tape. The driving polyrhythmic Afro-Caribbean percussion patterns, the jagged pointillism of international modernism, and the strong tape interjections provide the adhesive factors that hold the descriptive elements together. There are improvised sections as well. The music's violent percussive dissonances provide the necessary dramatic effect so as not to compromise the potency of the social message. While composing the piece, I envisioned it being performed in the streets of El Barrio, which is where the address title comes from, and where I actually lived for the first 8 years of my life. In an actual live performance, the theatrical elements are involved, which enhance the projection and impact of the work. The narrator-actor should also express emotion and act out the meaning of the text. Additionally, the 6 percussionists participate actively by not only playing, but also singing and acting. There are 2 electronic tape mixes, a 4-channel quadraphonic, or a 2-channel stereo. In a live performance, the use of 4-channel tape would be ideal. The tape was composed and realized at the Electronic Music Studio at the State University of New York at Buffalo, and uses a mixture of analog, concrete, and digital sound sources. The first movement, Migration, is introduced with an electronic prelude symbolizing the trek and exodus of the Puerto Rican from the island to the American mainland. Distorted bilingual speech is heard on the tape and juxtaposed to the rhythms of plena. Exaggeration and incisive sarcasm characterizes the text images as proclaimed by the narrator-actor with a sweeping rhythmic flow. The percussion ensemble provides the musical background that reflects and amplifies the meaning of the text. Some examples of the text used in the following movement are as follows. To the United States we came to learn how to misspell our name, to lose the definition of pride, to have misfortune on our side, to live where rats and roaches roam in a house that is definitely not a home, to be trained to turn on television sets, to dream about jobs you will never get, to to fill out welfare applications, to graduate from school without an education, to be drafted, distorted, and destroyed. To work full time and still be unemployed, to wait for income tax returns and stay drunk and lose concern for the heart and soul of our race. To pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of installment plans, one nation under discrimination, for which it stands and for which it falls, with poverty and injustice for everyone who has the sun on the side of their complexion. This is by Pedro Pietri, the great Pedro Pietri. I'll play a little bit. Let me see if I get a little bit of this. This is the beginning, the prelude, and so forth. It's a long piece of the percussionists slowly walk on stage. So this is a lot of to graduate from school without an education, to be drafted, distorted, and destroyed. To work full time and still be unemployed, to wait for income tax returns, and stay drunk and lose concern for the heart and soul of our race. It's a long piece, so there's a lot of things go on. I mean, the second movement is the most extensive, dramatizing a drug addict's nightmare, the mutilation of human relations, and expressions that yearn for the dominion of freedom and undistorted human relations. The text combines real elusive power with sarcastic humor, and in the end, deeply serious drama. The use of the percussion ensemble is different here. The writing is more abstract and coloristic effects that support the text. The music's harsh percussive power reflects the horror and depiction of a junkie's life. Disgust and estrangement is conveyed by the riveting rhythms and harsh electronic texture. The text reads, "And once again his empty pockets were empty, and once again his arms were aching. His nerves were doing weird things. His veins were the worst enemy his condemned mind had. And once again he asked his so-called friends to lend him money, and once again they turned their backs on him. And once again he falls in love with death. The sight of his saliva makes everybody faint. His breath smells like an endless cemetery. His eyeballs have melted. His legs have disappeared. There's nobody inside the clothes he is wearing. And once again he must risk a bullet in his back, mugging somebody for money to remove the splinters from his frozen blood vessels. And once again the pusher will become the supreme being on the corner of his nightmare. Waiting for the pusher to wake up is like waiting to be treated for 365 stab wounds at Harlem Hospital on a Saturday night. Why do those bastards sleep so late, knowing how strung out some of their best customers are?" He mumbles through the vomit falling out his trembling mouth. Etc., etc., etc. Then at the end, the negative imagery of the second movement ends on a positive note. Dance rhythms and bongo improvisations serves as a musical support in this brief moment of joy. The text reads, "The pusher will wake up late again tomorrow, but now that you are unfamiliar with the air, you could care less. Regardless of how high you are where pushers can no longer find you, where life is not a subject that nobody talks about anymore. And for a few seconds, all the buildings from the Hudson River to the East River become palm trees. There was grass for everyone to walk on. Drums were heard throughout the vicinity. Everyone was dancing. Elephants participated. The wind was scented with coconut integrity. For the first time in a very long time, it was sweet smelling. Everywhere you looked, a rainbow was present." I don't think I have the recording of this. Let's see if I can. I'm going to go skip to the third movement, which is the part where the percussionists sing doo-wop harmony. Because the text reads this way. It says, "Yes, those oldies but goodies remind me of you on trial for first-degree murder. You was hungry. You was unemployed. It was cold outside. You had no place to go. You had to stuff old newspapers inside your shirt to keep your body warm. Your eyes were too weak to read the help wanted ads. You was desperate. You was dying physically, and you did not want to die. You have not been born yet. You had to do something. You had no other choice. You did what any normal person in your situation will do. You did not commit a crime. You obeyed the first law of the universe. And for wanting to stay alive, you got busted. Ram-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a-ding-dong. Ram-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a-ding-dong. Ram-a-lam-a-lam, the doo-wop comes in. Ram-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a-ding-dong. Those that lived through the 50s and 60s would know that song. It's all you can put down in the examinations they give you every time you apply for a job. For character references, you put down Thunderbird, Ombre, Twister, Swissed Up, Muscatel, Apple Wine, and Galliport Chilled. You try over and over again to impress the bastards that are destroying you. But nobody knows what you're talking about. Everybody tuned into something else while you blew a lifetime listening to those oldies but goodies." Let me see if I can get that.
you on trial for first-degree murder. You was hungry. You was unemployed. It was cold outside. You had no place to go.
They played
You
wine
had to
bottles
stuff old
and beer
newspapers
cans.
inside your
Part of
shirt
the
to keep your body
theatrical
warm.
effect.
Your eyes were too weak to read the help wanted ads. You was desperate. You was dying physically. You did not want to die. You had not been born yet. You had to do something. You had no other choice. You did what any normal person in your situation will do. You did not commit a crime. You obeyed the first law of the universe. And for wanting to stay alive, you got busted. It's all you can put down on the examinations they give you every time you apply for a job. The character references you put down Thunderbird, Ombre, Twister, Swiss Up, Arriba, Muscatel, Apple Wine, and Gallo Pork Chill. You try over and over again to impress the bastards that are destroying you. But nobody knows what you're talking about. Everybody tuned into something else while you blew a lifetime listening to those oldies but goodies.
You sound very nice to me, but I remember you.
Okay, then the last movement is by Sandra Esteves, poet. It relates back to the first movement musically and textually, where there's a connection to the last line of the second movement. Everywhere you looked, a rainbow was present. The mood change is completely optimistic, yet rooted in reality. The text advances toward positive struggles and the future, calling for an end to the destructive forces that splinter personal lives and a growing political movement. Caribbean rhythms are again superimposed, creating a complex unity that fades out while the narrator walks off stage and the lights are dimmed gradually. The text by Sandra Esteves reads, Weaver, weavers a song of many threads, weavers a red of passion that beats wings against a smoky cloud and forces motion into our lungs. Weavers a song of red and yellow and brown that holds the sea and the sky in its skin, that holds the bird and mountain in its voice, that builds upon our graves a home for injustice, fear, oppression, abuse, and disgrace. And upon these fortifications of strength, unity, and direction, weave us a rich round black that lives in the eyes of our warrior child and feeds our mouths with moon breezes and rhythms interflowing through all spaces of existence, a black that holds the movement of eternity. This was also by the great poet Sandra Esteves, the Rican poet. The work depicts a particular aspect of the American experience and is a testament to some of its most humiliating and powerful and painful circumstances. Through it, I hope to reach those who are engaged in the battle for survival. In considering the approach that I take in creating a work responsive to the cultural and political needs of Latinos as working people, I concluded that for me, a musical creation as an expression of an oppressed people would need to take cognizance of the mainstream of their musical reality, while at the same time recognizing the rich diversity of avant-garde international musical thought. By combining these, I felt I would best be able to artistically address, through a familiar and progressive synthesis, without compromise, the questions and problems uppermost in the experience, thought, and sentiment of an embattled people. Street music is another piece. It's 1980, it's a flute, doubling on alto flute piccolo. tenor, trombone, and percussion. The work is about rhythm and timbre. The melodic instruments, the flute and trombone, are used in an unorthodox way. They are mostly rhythmic and percussive throughout the piece. The percussive repetition of single pitches in all parts are exploited and reminiscent of street noises like car horns, subway rumbling, an ambulance, or police sirens, reflecting the aggressive hustle and bustle of city street life. An important element of the piece is the use of a street gang chant that I heard in Brooklyn around 1960. And it goes, high-low, and a kid in the kid, a high-low, and a kid in the kid, get off the wall, get off your ass, the mighty buccaneers are coming to pass, a high-low, and a kid in the kid, a high-low, and a kid in the kid. This was, I was a kid living in the projects, and I would hear at night the gangs walking by before they were going down on another gang, and we'd hear these chants, and I remember these chants, and I said, hey, this is like urban anthropology. This is the beginnings of rap. I'm talking about 1960. This was the beginning of rap, hip hop, and it was never documented. But these kids who had no musical training were singing these things and doing these, inventing all these harmonies, rhythms, and so forth. Thank God I recalled that, and I incorporated this into this piece. It's a military-like rhythm, served to intimidate and evoke pride and enhance heart, valor in the young warlords. I use this vocalized graffiti, that's what I call it, not only as a rhythmical motive source, but to imbue that inner city street attitude of the work as well. Most likely one of the predecessors of rap and hip-hop. This chant is an ethno-musicological treasure, a manifestation of urban street law, and I feel fortunate to have been able to recall and document it. We heard street music with the Dr. Ricardo Coelho da Sousa played a piece of it yesterday. So I'm going to continue, because for lack of time, to Graffiti New Yorican, another piece of 1983. Dr. Ricardo Coelho da Sousa has written, Graffiti New Yorican is one of Ortiz's most important compositions for percussion. The percussion writing is mature, placing the percussion part on the same footing with the piano. In fact, the instruments complement each other very well, creating a rich array of colors at the composer's disposal. It also integrates the use of popular music and modern art music resources in a very unique way. In Graffiti New Yorican, like in street music, Ortiz's eclectic identity assimilates the seemingly opposing facets of very different cultures in an integrated form. The piece consists of 3 movements or parts played without pause. The titles used are 1, a Lower East Side poem. The second movement is Broken English Dream. And third movement is South Bronx Prayer. The vocal exclamations during the course of the piece are taken from poems by Miguel Piñero, Pedro Pietri, and recordings of the Joe Cuba Sextet. Examples are, it's on the roof, 100 proof. It's in my sneaker, a bag of reefer. The day the lords and the jesters jitterbug down. Ain't no snitch, La Coca is a bitch. Not even Beethoven can keep up with my Latino reality. La Bodega sold dreams. The use of this vocal graffiti as another musical element and the continuous search for distinct sonorities between the piano and the percussion instruments makes clear the main idea of the piece, which is the exploration of coloristic possibilities of these resources. In this work, I was looking for the basic sound sources that provide long and short attacks, sustained and delayed, rich harmony, overtone structures. The metallic percussion instruments and the piano have these qualities. My desire was to create a new piece, to create new sounds as organic, beautiful, and complex as those of the real world, in a music that reflects the aesthetics and attitudes of an urban society. Let's listen to this. The piece, the pianist is Dr. Alberto Hernandez Banucci, and the percussionist Jose Pepe Torres. It's on the roof, 100 proof. It's in my sneaker, a bag of reefer. El aguacero, el aguacero, el aguacero, el aguacero, el aguacero, el aguacero, el aguacero. Okay, that's just a little bit. Now I'd like to talk. Rican is written in 1986. Is a bilingual street chamber opera that explores the identity problems and tragedy of the New York Puerto Rican living in the ghetto. It is scored for soprano, contralto, tenor, bass, baritone, guitars, keyboards, cello, bass, and percussion. The music and libretto was written by yours truly and refers linguistically and musically to the New Rican condition. For example, the first part is in English, and the second part is in Spanish, and then the third part is in Spanglish. It was first performed in 1991 by the American Opera Projects. With Rican, I would like to affirm the existence of a culturally and psychologically whole people that is strong enough to bring together two languages, two experiences, two worlds. To be New Rican is to be universal, is to be existentially wired to men and women of different colors and tongues the world over, Spanish speakers, English speakers, and people anywhere whose existence cannot be categorized or labeled by language, nationality, or race. More than that, to all Americans that, whether they realize it or not, are living in a mulatto mestizo civilization that enjoys the cultural heritage of Africa, the Americas, Asia, and Europe. To all peoples who have been uprooted from their land and had to witness their own children's severed roots, to the valiant women who personify this creative spirit, to all people struggling to create themselves. Moving on to the next piece, which is Bolero and Hip Hop. Okay, Bolero and Hip Hop in Myrtle Avenue, 1986. The title is in Spanglish and refers to the reflection of bicultural influences and attitudes found in most North American cities. The stylized juxtapositioning of the two contrary musical forms, the Latin American bolero and the North American hip-hop, in this case, confirms the diverse reality and fusion of styles endemic of American culture. Myrtle Avenue stretches from downtown Brooklyn to Ridgewood, Queens. Growing up there in Brooklyn, I lived in El Barrio, and I lived also in Brooklyn. We moved around a lot in New York City. I would hear the changing rhythms and moods of boleros and the black music coming from the streets. The placing of these two popular music forms side by side alludes to that actual experience and at the same time pays homage to the cultural influence so important in creating social consciousness in my music. The work was written for David Burns, oboe, and Alberto Hernandez, piano. And here is a little bit of that. But I'm sorry, I have to go on quickly, but thank you. I have to continue. Ghetto is a dramatic work of 1987. It is for flute, amplified guitar, and percussion. It has, garbage can tops, claves, vibra slap, thunder sheet, congas, etc. The text is by the New Rican poets Miguel Algarín, Américo Casiano, Victor Hernandez Cruz, Tato Laviera, Anima Muñoz, and Miguel Piñero. The rap-like delivery of the text by the singer-narrator is interrupted by intoned fragments and narrated passages. Ricardo Coelho has stated that the vocal delivery is quite challenging, requiring the singer to sing not only in the ordinary manner, but also in falsetto and sprechstimme, narrate and act, imitate vocally the sound of a beatbox. All that is in that text, is in that piece. Let me read a little bit of the text, and we'll hear a little bit of this. It begins, the text, by Anima Muñoz. It says, "Sit in my 67 Cadillac with my John's bargain store shirt. Little Anthony and Tito Puente sing through black sweat. Broken bottles in the street shine like diamonds at your feet. Beer smells, wine smells, rum smells covered the night like lace at a first communion. Aquí," this is Victor Hernandez Cruz. "Aquí, land of tall cylinders, glass between cement shining, land of forgotten tongues that surface time to time. Suena, I present you the tall skyscrapers as merely huge palm trees with lights. Suena, the roaring of the trains is a fast guaguancó, dance of ages. Suena, small snowfalls, coconut chips galore. Suena, pito que pito, yuco que llama, salsa que emprende, llanto que llora, pa, 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 conguero, sonero." And those parks, those ghetto parks, the living room, kitchen of many desperate souls, tumbao movement, street-gutted salsa, conguero, sonero, spirit coroso, llamama, jingumbe, que sin bajo un hueco en el corazón, conguero, sonero. You buy frustrated, wine-twisted definitions, and the winos find employment for their wretched lives, reminiscing on the women that left them behind because they couldn't take it anymore. Conguero, sonero, cowbells from empty wine bottles, empty congas, cemented hands, all these sounds about words around faces coming from Tito, hermano mío, coño, nodding on the street like a tumbao. That's from Tato Laviera, the great Tato Laviera. Huh? Okay, well, we don't have time for any more. I have a lot of other pieces that experience the American experience in music, but I want to finish with a new piece that, in a whole different vein, it's a piece whose text was written by my daughter, Amaya Ortiz. It's based on Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, who was born in Mexico in 1651 and died in 1691. She was a controversial figure, much like the Puerto Rican poets of our time, and she had an ironic social message. She was a defender of women's rights and was censured. Her defiance against the Catholic Church led to her books being confiscated, and the following is a reflection which Amaya will read to you, and she'll read a little bit of the poem while the people while they can set up.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Amaya Ortiz, and first of all, I'd like to say that it's such an honor being here today. This poetry is born from the frequent and recurrent cravings for the literature of the 10 muse, Sor Juana Inés, also known as the Mexican Phoenix. Her ways of writing and her well-placed thoughts on paper always has a way of hanging on deeply to this one who enjoys her talent. With charming subtlety, her use of rhyme and wordplay takes care of embodying the soul and of penetrating the impregnable in ourselves. In this way, she is a source of endless inspiration and interminable admiration felt by those who appreciate this kind of love and level of wisdom. Then I allow myself the usual astonishment of her lines, with every single letter rejoining the others, forming the thought of simple and coherent feelings, addressing the soul in a free fall. For that and always in her, I see myself delighted. The text reads, sí que pareciera el agujero del alma, el más brillante túnel hacia la noche estrellada, quien sacrifica dones que figuran sus tazas por coplas de angustia, de llanto sanadas, mayor de por vida degustando, el agua del Nilo desangrando, victoria del día sin sus pasos, en cuentos parciales del sol refinado, acariciando los maltratos en escudo acatados, rescatando ese sentir que no siempre ríe a ratos. Si supiera cómo parecer sin alma, si supiera al menos no tener mañana, viviré el hoy escupido, salteado en llamas, en el río del espejismo que amor exclama. Cientos de pesares, de vidas de aclarar males, cientos vicios en mis gajes, por lisos y tontos madrigales. Y si me siento en los pesares, si no voy en ocurrencias, infernal es por mi urgencia de mis andanzas en demencia. Tanto así fue el encanto de un encuentro solitario entre el bullicio de ramas a lo alto de la plataforma de un sobrio llanto. Fue cuando empecé a sospechar de tales cuestiones de la ciudad, si se contamina por agotar o si se agota por contaminar. Pero solo existe quien quiere estar, y los moretones nada que ver con la verdad, sin las mentiras que se escapan al tratar de estar juntos mediante escaso afán. Muchas gracias y espero que la disfruten.